Hi. My name is Craig Topham, and I'll do introduction in a second. But first, got a slide here, and notice the 40th anniversary of the Free Software Foundation. There's actually some events happening all over the world. I think one of them is in Seattle. So if you just go to fsf.org and kind of check it out and see what's happening. First, I'd like to thank Linux Fest Northwest for letting me talk. First time person here. Been to the Seagull a couple of times, and I pretty much grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so I feel like I'm amongst my people. It's quite nice. My name is Craig Topham. I mentioned earlier, I'm the Copyright and Licensing Associate for the Free Software Foundation. I started becoming a activist in 2006, and I started volunteering. As soon as I became active, I became a member of the Free Software Foundation. And then I began volunteering, and then eventually got a job in 2018. I care very deeply about free software and freedom in general. And I'm also honored to be called the world's #1 bicyclist. If you're wondering what that is, it is this. It is this. Basically, I pick up garbage while I ride my bicycle. I don't have to stop or slow down. There's a cigarette butt. So yeah, there was a cigarette lighter. Yeah, just you get the idea. I've been doing it over 11 years and probably collected my estimation's anywhere from 7 to 8 tons of garbage. Because each basket, if you give it, each basket is 3 pounds, a basket every day for 11 years. It adds up. And the only person who's calling me that is myself. So I guess that's one's better than nothing.
Wait, do you take the same route every day and you're getting 3 pounds every day, or you find new routes to go?
Well, a part of it, so it started with commuting. So I rode my bike to work. It's about 5 miles, and I'd fill up a basket about every 5 miles. And then what I do once I fill up a basket, I find a garbage bin to dump it in. And that often changes my route because I want to map the different bins. And then I take a picture of the bin and I make some stupid joke. And then I post it on OpenStreetMaps. And to date, I've probably mapped, it's got to be like 900 to 1,000 bins on OpenStreetMaps. So, and that's, yeah, I see a bin, I go, okay, I'm going to get you tomorrow, get this one next week. So.
You're a champion and a steward.
Thank you, thanks. No, it's something, I'm trying to make it a thing, especially amongst commuters, because if you're riding your bikes, the point is if you want to pick up trash, you get off the bike. But if you're commuting somewhere, what's your hands doing? You just, it's right there, start with napkins, the cigarette butts come later. Actually, those are the easiest to pick up because you only need just to get a tiny bit of it. Like if you get, it doesn't get away from you. But that's not what I'm here to talk about, but thank you for your interest. Disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. The objectives is to talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about why free software is important, and then we're going to get into kind of the 101 of it all, the licensing 101. It's really not to be, it's a introduction to it all. And then after that, I'm going to talk about what the licensing and compliance lab is up to. And then after that, I'm going to shamelessly ask you to become associate members of the Free Software Foundation. FSF.org join. And the only reason I emphasize that, because that's how we keep going. Like 80% of our operational costs are covered by membership dues, and that's how we do it. So what is free software? Really quickly, I'm going to read this verbatim because this is what's up on the website. Software is said to be free when the users have the freedom to run, copy, distribute, study, change, and improve the software. And that gives you the 4 freedoms to run, study, copy, and modify the software. And those are the 4 things that make up the 4 freedoms, which are part of the free software definition published by the Free Software Foundation. And these freedoms, of course, are given to you through the license under which the software is distributed. But the big question is why? That's as big as I could make it, so there it is. Why do we have free software? Why does it exist? And I think we should have a deep sense of gratitude that we have the time and opportunity to ponder this question, because an alarming number of people, the world to them looks like this. Everything's nuts, it's all crazy. And my news feed is let's just say it's a all-you-can-eat nightmare buffet. And I would suspect this for many others who are paying attention and knowing what's going on. So it's all crazy. It's nuts. It doesn't make any sense. But okay, so back to being calm. So we need solutions. So one of the things that I had discovered with the bicycling, it's basically a act of random kindness machine. And so when people see me do it, their inner light shines a little brighter. And I think that's kind of one of the most important things we need right now. But we also need free software. And yeah, that's it. And so, yeah, so protecting and promoting software freedom is a little more involved. So I don't know how else to explain this because I am a pacifist, but we are locked in combat for not only free software, but for like our very future. The proprietary software producers, they would make free software disappear if they could, but they can't. Otherwise, they would have done it already. But this actually doesn't mean they've stopped trying. I'm out of breath up here. I'll get through it. So yeah, no, they would. And so there's a bigger picture here I'd like everybody to consider. Is that there's more than free software at stake. Our battlefront is software freedom, but there are people, but the war for our future is multifaceted and again pacifist. But there are people fighting all over the world. They're fighting for things like clean water, food, housing, like really basic stuff, but also freedom from oppression, freedom of speech, privacy, all of which are increasingly difficult to protect. And if any one of those battles fails, our future will look very, very bleak, possibly like the previous slide we just saw. And so, I forgot my train of thought. Yeah, these people are fighting. It's sometimes even out in the street. And I said that already. Okay. I personally believe that control over one's computing is a human right. And I feel if the free software movement fails, you can say goodbye to privacy and freedom of speech, amongst others, I'm sure. So the deal is this. We want freedom. They want to take it away. And one of the most important defenses that we've had that protect free software, and it protects the free software and allows it to flourish, and has done so over the last 40 years, is because of the GNU General Public License. And yes, the GNU General Public License, along with the legal framework of law. And the GPL wasn't the first free software license, but it was the first license to ensure freedom for software, then, now, and into the future. So this is why we have free software licensing, is to protect or to spread computer user freedom. And anything that's done to weaken the cause reduces our chances of victory. So when somebody says open source instead of mentioning freedom, it weakens the cause. If somebody chooses a permissive license over copyleft, it weakens the cause. If somebody chooses a DCO over a perhaps legally more substantial agreement that protects free software, it weakens the cause. And somebody, heaven forbid, they choose a non-attribution permissive license, which is something new and annoying, it undermines the cause. And I don't feel that we should weaken our position in this fight. Not just our fight, it's the fight for free software, but for a free society as a whole. So everything I just kind of mentioned there, we're going to talk about a little bit. A lot of that, I just threw a bunch of words out. They're not made up words, they mean things. We'll perhaps retroactively that screed will make a little more sense. And this is one of the reasons why I say free software, not open source. I made a choice a long time ago that if you want to talk about, if I wanted to talk about freedom, I'm going to put the message first, even if it requires a little more explanation. One of the things I find funny is one of the excuses that were given as why the term open source needed to be created is because the word free was too confusing. But it's like, I can say, hey, we live in a free society, and nobody goes, what do you mean free? What, nobody pays for anything and the government just does all the work? It's like, no. Nobody does that because they understand what it means. But you say free software, and they go, huh? Free isn't freedom. What? It's like not free. It's not free as in free beer. Oh, somebody say free beer? But I've experienced that so many times that there's something very suspect about it. But that's enough of that. I will step off my soapbox and we'll get into why you're all here. Captive audience is always fun to. All right, so real quick history of the Free Software Foundation and the kind of the whole thing. So in 1983, the GNU project was started to create a fully free operating system, and the FSF followed a few years later, basically as a nonprofit to kind of be the legal infrastructure, taxes, The FSF holds copyright over GNU, which I'll talk about a little bit later when it comes to compliance. Moving forward, in 1989, the GPL v2 was published by the Free Software Foundation. Of course, that came with the 4 freedoms, which meant that you get the source code and you'd be able to compile it, and also with copyleft, which I will talk a little bit more about later, because that's kind of a key aspect of the GPL. In 1991, the LGPL initially was called the Library General Public License, and it eventually became the Lesser General Public License. And essentially, it's a compromise. It was one of those things, well, we have these libraries, they're free, but I should have explained copyleft. Now, I'll come back to that, because this slide is very similar to the one next to it. Anyway, in 1992, the kernel Linux was released under the GNU General Public License version 2, and that in combination with GNU gave the world its first fully free operating system. In 1998, a new, less freedom-focused name co-opted the message of freedom. I won't dignify to say who did it, but that happened, and so we'll just deal with it. And then in 2007, the GPL v3 along with the AGPL v3, the Affero General Public License, was published. And this side, so now I'm going to start talking about the things that these slides are. So these are the GNU General Public Family of Licenses, they call it, and I'm going to talk about, so there's V2 and V3 of the GPL, and the reason why they all need to be mentioned is because they're both widely used, actually almost equally widely used. But the difference between the two, so in version 3, they added what's called a patent license grant. Basically, it says at least the person that authored it, if they have any patents, they're not going to use it against whatever downstream is created with it, I guess. The issue is that it's only for the author of the person licensing the code. It doesn't stop a third party from coming in and making a mess of it. Software patents stink, possibly physically stink if you ever got close to one. I haven't, but they really just need to go away. There's it's endsoftwarepatents.org is the Free Software Foundation's effort to do this. They're just the terrible thing. But that was one of something the V2 does not have. The next thing is the TiVoization, and what that means is, hold on.
We all get TiVo in our house?
Yeah, everybody gets a free look under your chairs. So basically what TiVoization is I can take GPL software and lock it into a device, sell that device, but then I can say, well, here's the source code, but it doesn't do you any good because you can't reinstall it on the device. And it's a really kind of not a nice thing to do. However, some people will argue convincingly that the V2 does have the language in in its license, which in section 3 it says, plus the scripts used to control compilation and installation of the executable. And then in V3, the improvement is all the source code needed to generate, install, and for an executable work, run the object code, and to modify the work, including scripts to control those activities. I feel like there's missing something, because at some point it addresses like keys. Huh. Maybe that's incomplete, but something that was the justification for this particular a change to the GPL. The next thing is in section 7 of the GPL v3, there's these additional permissions that can be granted, or additional requirements that can be added to the license. This is done to make it more compatible with various licenses that are out there. The next one is the 30-day restoration of rights. So basically in the GPL v2, if you are caught violating the license by not distributing the source code, your rights are terminated immediately, and the only way you can get them restored is permission from the author. With the GPL v3, there's a 30-day kind of window that you can kind of get your stuff together, and your rights will be automatically restored without having to get permission from the copyright holder. And there's also some additional language that makes GPL a little more international. The LGPL, yeah, this is where it makes more sense to talk about it, but essentially it was a compromise. There's not a lot of, there's small differences between the versions, but the idea is yeah, I should have talked about the copyleft. So copyleft, what copyleft means is if you use GPL and you combine it with another work, the whole thing has to be under the GPL. And so if you have a library that could be widely used, but that people don't want to use it because if it was GPL'd, the whole thing has to be GPL'd. But with the lesser general public license, that library can stand by itself and not affect the rest of the code base. You still have to provide the source for that license or for the LGPL work, and also the ability for the person to change it, modify it, recompile it, and into the thing that you took it from, I guess. And then finally, the AGPL is essentially the GPL with an additional section 13, where it talks about distribution and interacting with, not distribution, with interacting it with the program over a network. So with the regular GPL, the requirement to provide source code is when you distribute it. So for example, if I get a GPL program, I can do whatever I want in private. I can do, that's the beauty of it, and there's like a little chart coming up on the next screen that shows it. But the second I give it to somebody else, I have obligations to provide the source code. So when you use a program like, if you're all familiar with Mastodon, I'm sure, that's AGPL v3. And when you're using Mastodon, you're interacting with something over a network. It's not local. And so what the AGPL does is say that activity of interacting with the program over a network triggers the obligation to provide source code for its users. And then real quick, I just threw this on like 10 minutes ago, or 10 minutes before I started. So all the GPLs have this option for an GPL only or GPL or later. And the only means, obviously, it's this one. Like, for example, the kernel Linux is under the GPL v2 only. What the option is the or later lets any future people down the road, they can upgrade to the newer version of the GPL. And the reason why, the message we're trying to get out there is a lot of people say, well, what if the FSF gets taken over or something along those lines? If you look at the language of those sections, it says like it needs to be in the spirit. There's a lot of obstacles for somebody to come in and change the language and make free software non-free. All right, so moving on. So different types of licenses. This is the graph that's up on GNU.org. Basically, just going down thing, public domain, I'm sure you're all familiar with it. There's software out there. The only thing is you can distribute binaries in the public domain, but not have to provide source. Like you can have a public domain binary, and it's not required. And that kind of makes it non-free from the FSF's point of view. And then also the public domain software needs to be declared by the author. So you can't just have, so here's a good example. If you find some code that has no license attached to it, it's non-free. You don't know where it came from. You didn't write it. It's basically, I believe that's called abandonware, where it's just, I mean, yeah, sure, you can use it personally to, take your chances, but if you're like a big company looking to avoid risk, you're not going to let that code into your projects. The next one is their permissive license or lax permissive license. These are ones popularly, their BSD has a few different ones. When people call it the MIT license, we like to call it the expat because that's what the license was originally made for. But these are really lax. It basically, you kind of can do whatever you want. Some people claim that they're more free because they don't have the obligations of sharing the source code. Sure, but you're not sharing the source code, so you're really it technically isn't free. Yeah, if you look at those licenses, they're very, very short. It just basically says, you just keep attribution, like this license has to be here. It says you can do whatever you want with it. And then there's like a disclaimer of warranty that's included. Let's see if any more notes on that. Oh yeah, so like permissive license are a really good example of this being abused is the Apple's, which one? They use FreeBSD, right, with their Mac OS. There's free software in Mac products, but because of the permissive license, they don't have to provide the source code. So this is an example of somebody benefiting from free software, but not giving back to the community. It's really kind of disappointing. And see, now I finally get to the copyleft license. See, I should have definitely talked about that earlier. So the copyleft, is, as kind of mentioned earlier, it's basically whatever the GPL gets mixed with, whatever it gets combined with, has to be licensed under the GPL. So if I combine the GPL with let's say the expat license, the program as a whole has to be under the GPL. Now the individual code files are still under the MIT license, or I caught myself, under the expat license, but as a whole it has to be under the GPL. And any modifications made to a copyleft software also has to be under the GPL. Oh yeah, I missed the thing here. Going real quick back to the expat, the permissive license. The only one that we mildly, if you really have to use a permissive license, we recommend the Apache 2.0. And the reason why that is that has the patent license grant, as I mentioned earlier. It's just another level of protection. It's again, software patents are disappointing that they exist. Yeah, so the GPLs are copyleft. There's a few other out there. The Mozilla Public License is one of them that is a copyleft license. And this is also, yeah, so obviously, so copyleft, one of the requirements of copyleft license, it has to be the same license, so that makes two copyleft licensed programs incompatible. And that's why the GPL v2 and the GPL v3 are not compatible licenses, because they both require them to be under, you see, I'm getting some nod in the head nod. You can't, they have to be under the license that it came from, so they can't, it's a confliction. I'll give up on that one. And then the next category is non-free, other free licenses. I guess these are ones that just don't fall under either a permissive or copyleft.
Like Creative Commons, or like?
What you mean? Sorry. What do you mean? Sorry.
Sorry. One of the ones we just saw was, or one of my friends saw was open sourcing a shirt. And
Okay.
ended up using Creative Commons licensing.
Yeah, the Creative Commons has several licenses. They have one of them is by SA, which means it's attribution and share alike, and that share alike is basically copyleft. Yeah. Of course the is it on here? Oh, the mention of open source. So real quick, there's two major I'm going to put in air quotes, authorities about which licenses are free or not. It's the Free Software Foundation and the Open Source Initiative. And the Open Source Initiative is the people that in 1998 came up with this open silly source thing. And you can tell I don't like it. But if you compare the two lists, they're basically the same. There's a few little edge cases that we don't say are free, and they do. But basically, open source software and free software, by that standard of licensing, they're effectively the same thing. But like I said, we need to be talking about freedom, in my opinion. And then there's things, of course, there's proprietary software, the Microsoft and Apples of the world. And then there's things like freeware and shareware. They're like free to run, but you don't have access to the source code. Maybe you can only run it on one computer. I don't deal with those like at all. They never come on my radar. Yeah, and you can't you can't modify it, you can't use it. And then so this chart has right at the top where it says it's release software and private software. And that's an interesting distinction. I mentioned it earlier about with whatever you do with it is your business. It's just the fact if you ever distribute it, that's when the stuff kicks in. Yeah, so how can you tell if a license is free? Here I really have to stress that I am not a lawyer. I can make sure I read this carefully. And this is not legal advice. If you really want to know if a program is free, like for some legitimate business person, you go get legal counsel. They're out there. But that said, that's kind of the beauty of the 4 freedoms is that you should be able to read a license and see if it, go down each one of the freedoms and see if it can run for any purpose. And there's a lot of licenses out there that are, they try to do reduce use, like they say no military purposes. It's like that's non-free. It's altruistic. I appreciate you not encouraging war. But it's just not, one, how do you enforce it? Not the military restriction, but that kind of restriction. You can't use it that hurt animals or something like that. There's just no, licenses aren't the place to deal with that. So we just try to keep it free and yeah. So if you look at the 4 freedoms and you read through a license, can I run it? Can I make edits to it? Can I share my modifications? You can probably get a pretty good idea of whether it's free or not. And then, yeah, so that's kind of it for that. So I'm going to get into some other areas to explore. Where are we at on time?
12 minutes left.
How many?
12.
12? Okay. So yeah, so that was kind of the bulk of it. That's the licensing 101, and I'm going to I got 12 minutes. I'm going to rattle down the next things to be if you're interested in this stuff, the next areas to explore. There are exceptions to the GPL. These are just additional permissions that are granted, mostly around the GCC and other things that build other things, just to make sure that active compiling process doesn't force you to go GPL. To watch out for confusing licenses. So we see this quite a bit, and it's something the Licensing and Compliance Lab is engaged in, is they'll release the GPL and they'll put on an additional restriction and still call it the GPL. And it's like, well, when people see the GPL, they know kind of what they're getting. And if all of a sudden it says, I can't use this for commercial purposes, it's like, well, that's confusing. And so keep an eye out for that. And if you find any, feel free to email licensing@fsf.org. The GPL is a contract. So in the earlier slide, I put license/contract. And this is really, really interesting. So there is a case going on, and the trial is in mid-September. Write that on go find out where this is happening and check it out. So basically, the Software Freedom Conservancy is suing Vizio because they are not providing the source code for their televisions. And instead of approaching it as a copyright infringement, they're treating the license as a contract, and so Vizio is in breach of contract. And it's going well, and when successful, being the optimist, it's a game changer. Because basically that's anybody, if you have the resources, can get a lawyer and sue a company for not providing the source code for their product. That's huge, because before it required the copyright owner. Watch out for a free washing. This is where companies will they'll say we love free and open software. We have this this program, but then when you look closer into it, it's like they'll have like an enterprise version that has more features than the community version, almost to the point where the community version is like pointless. But they like saying, oh, we let GPL, and they can put it on their website. So kind of keep an eye out for that stuff. Watch out for licenses with use restrictions. I kind of talked about that earlier about the military thing. We're seeing a big cropping of this with machine learning licenses that are coming out. Again, with the you can't use this to break laws, you can't blah, blah, blah. It's not, again, not where it should. I'm not saying to go break laws. I'm just saying that licensing is not where that should be happening. Dual licensing. So this is where so an author can release their work under whatever license they want, under however many licenses they want. So like I can say, you can have this with the GPL. Oh, but I can give you a proprietary license so you can do what you want to do without having to worry about the GPL. It's a completely different license. It's fine as long as the GPL one is respected and doing its thing. The developer certificate of origin, I kind of was a little hard on that earlier. They're actually not that bad, but I'm worried that if implemented and not handled correctly with a project, it could create some unforeseen issues. I thought I had more. Oh yeah, I got more about the Superior Court of California, Orange County of Orange. I thought it was Orange County. Yeah, and mid-September. Yeah, I'm planning to go down there. Because you can sit in the courthouse while the trial is happening, or hang out outside with a sign or something. The free washing thing. Almost. Oh yeah, this is something I very much want to say. So, the DCO stands for Developer Certificate of Origin, and it was created and endorsed by the Linux Foundation. And I would encourage everyone as an experiment is to go to the Linux Foundation's website and look at all the corporate sponsors and just go down the list and ask yourself, do I trust this? Do I trust this corporation? And just say yes or no. And then when you're done, take the yeses and the nos and see how many you have for each. There'll probably not be many yeses, because it's a rogues gallery of the people that turned the clock back 20 years ago were not savagely. That's not the right word. We're attacking free software, but now they're buddy with free software, and it's just I don't know. I just have a healthy skepticism of giant corporations. And the last one is license proliferation. It's a problem. People they want to write their own license. If somebody's writing a license, say, hey, don't just use the GPL or one of the 100 others that are available. Because once one has traction, it's just not good. Especially if it's written without the assistance of legal counsel. I personally would never trust a license that has not been drafted by a legal counsel. How are we doing on time? Oh, nice. It's just a problem, and then of course there's the compatibility issues with the GPL that can become concerned. How to license your work? Easy, GPL, you're done. No, just kidding. There's more to it. It depends on the project you're contributing to, whatever license they're using. If it's something you really like and it's under Apache 2.0, don't say, hey, make it GPL. A real common one is JavaScript. That's primarily permissively licensed, like a JS node, yeah, right? And so you're not going to kick the door in and say, we're going GPL. It's like 10,000 other, JavaScript programs. And then, so how to choose a license, we have some resources at the GNU.org, licenses/license recommendations. And then if you want to go with the GPL, it's like how to apply the GPL to your work. It's not, again, it's not legal advice, it's recommendations. And the reason why the recommendation word is used so much is because there really is no official way to license your work. Like there's no, like, you have to do this, this, and this. Copyright notices kind of have some specifics, but not really. Like you don't have to put copyright on your stuff, the little C and things like that. But so yeah, there's some pretty solid, well used, widely used ways of doing it. Additional resource to help you with your journey. So we have the license list. This is what I mentioned earlier. This is a list of licenses that we, is it free software? Is it compatible with the GPL? And then if it's not free software. And there's of course the GPL FAQ. This is a giant page of like 170 questions and answers. Oh yeah, plenty of time. Yeah, so those are there for you. And then now I'm going to talk about the Licensing and Compliance Lab because you're going to be bowled over by all the hard work we do and want to become an associate member. I can feel it. So one of the things that we do is the GPL violations enforcement. That's straightforward. So we're the copyright holders of the GNU project. If somebody's distributing GNU software and not providing the licenses, we send them a nice email. We send them a second nice email. And then the third or fourth email comes from a lawyer. Most of the time, it's not people actively trying to violate the GPL. It's more like an oversight. So they have been usually just cooperative and like, what do I need to do to fix this kind of thing? But that's a big portion of what, an important element of what we do. Recently, we've been getting into trademark and copyright enforcement on the GPL itself. An example is I don't want to name names, but there was a company that there's a license addition out there called the Commons Clause. It's basically, it restricts you from using it for commercial use. And they tacked it onto the bottom of the AGPL. And it's like, that's an additional restriction. Somebody should be able to remove that, and they don't agree with that. And so they're saying that's our license. Say, well, now you're hurting. I need to find a better phrase, but basically by doing that, they're hurting our brand. Because when people see GNU in the GPL, they know what they're getting. And if they say, what's this thing at the bottom? It's, I can't sell this? What? So that's something that and then the copyright infringement portion of it, or copyright enforcement with that is they've modified the GPL. It's basically, it's the first line of the thing that says that you can do whatever you want, share this thing, but changing it's not allowed. We evaluate devices for our Respect Your Freedom program. So basically we have a vendor is selling a product and we evaluate it to make sure it runs on all free software. It's been, it's just something we do. It's been a little inactive for a while, but it's not, it'll make a comeback. Another big thing that we do, we answer licensing questions. So at licensing@fsf.org, if you have a licensing question, as long as you're producing free software, we can't give legal advice, but we can kind of tell you the intention of the GPL, and if your situation is getting to a point, we'll say, you need to go see a lawyer. Of course, we maintain our materials, things like the FAQ page and the license list. There's tons of stuff out there that we've published, not me personally, but over the last 40 years. And then there's the free software directory. If you ever want to have a program and evaluate it to make sure, to see if it's licensed as free software, every Friday, noon to 3, in Libera Chat, the FSF channel. I'm there, and with like maybe 2 or 3 other people, and we use a scan code toolkit and it scans the software to see what's there and what licenses are there. The scan code toolkit's not the only player in the game, but it's pretty effective for finding non-free files. And the best part of it is the volunteers then reach out to the projects and go, hey, I'm trying to add your thing to the directory, but this file here says it's non-free. And the projects respond and fix it. And that is, I think it's got to be delightful for the volunteers to help a project fix their licensing. I don't know, it's really cool. And then we have the Endorsed Distros program where we look at the full operating system, make sure it's free. The difference with that is we have this free systems distribution guidelines where it's kind of beyond just you can't encourage any kind of proprietary software or anything like that. It's really, it's kind of strict, but once it goes through the process, people can be assured that they're dealing with a fully free operating system. Like I, for myself, use Triskel. And then, of course, copyright assignment, we manage the copyright assignment for GNU. And that's it. Look at that, 12 seconds. Not bad. So yeah, questions? And then I'll be at I'm so glad you guys came. I didn't know until like a half hour before this started that I was up against Mad Dog. And so, but I'm glad you came. So thank you. Yeah, that's it.